Hey guys, the Super Review Show here for another episode of Rock Talk. I'm bringing it back, people. I'm bringing it back. Here we go. Anyways, that's another reference for another time. Anyways, today's Rock Talk episode is on Elvis's gold records from the 50s. I have, obviously, as you can tell, an original vinyl pressing of this album. And funny story about this album. This album is the first ever greatest hits of any artist ever. So when you think of the Rolling Stones greatest hits, or you think of the Beatles #1 or Bruce Springsteen, whoever, this was the very first greatest hits album ever. Because the thought never dawned on people. The thought dawned on Elvis's record label at the time. They said, why don't we just take all of his hit songs and put them on one album? And they didn't call it a greatest hits record. As you can see here, they called it Elvis's gold record. Look at that guy. Love that guy. Burn in Love, anyone? This guy, Elvis Presley, I'm just talking about him for a second. Elvis, what a guy, man. He's been dead for over 40 years, I think 43 actually, or something like that. He was something else. I want to talk about him for just for a hot sec. Elvis Presley, in his day, was an outcast. The best way I could put it is that he was an outcast, and millions upon millions to this day, people still flock like a moth to a flame to his music. There's something about him and his voice that he portrayed on these records that really touched the lives of millions of people. Millions, if not maybe billions of people. I'm going to go through the track listing on this album. Most of you will know a lot of them if you are familiar with Elvis Presley. Hound Dog, Lovin' You, All Shook Up, oh, hey, yeah. Don't kill me, don't sue me. Heartbreak Hotel, Jailhouse Rock, Love Me, Too Much, Don't Be Cruel. Some of these you may not be as familiar with, but That's When Your Heartache Begins. Love Me, Let Me Be Your Teddy Bear. Let me be your teddy bear. Love Me Tender, Treat Me Nice, Any Way You Want Me, That's How I'll Be. I Want You, I Need You, I Love You. That's everything that's on this record. And I love it back in the day. 70s, they didn't really do this, but in the 50s and 60s, they definitely did this. They told stories of, I'm going to show this to you guys right here. They told stories about how the album came together and what goes on with it. I think you can see that right there. Everything from how Elvis started or what songs were put on here. The Beatles, Meet the Beatles, has this on the back of their album cover. The Fab Four from England, you know what I mean? But this was really something, and it just explains the back, like everything on the back cover. It's fantastic. And it says each song, and they give different recording session stories. And on the back top here, let me just show this to you right there. There's the track listing right there. All the songs that I just listed are on this album. And as I said, this was the very first greatest hits ever for any artist. What a guy, man. Elvis Presley. It's a funny story. A true story. Funny story. My grandmother and grandfather, who are still alive, and they're doing great, even though COVID's been hitting us hard. They saw Elvis Presley back in 1972 or 3. I'm not sure what year it was specifically, but they saw Elvis Presley live in 1972 or 3. I'm not sure which year it was, but they witnessed him live. Now, there are recordings on Spotify, there's vinyl records, whatever. There's CDs, there's cassettes of all this stuff, and you could YouTube performances from that era of him. This is obviously the 50s, but they did, look at that guy. Love that guy. They saw him live. And true story, they were going to go see him again, and they never got the chance to, because he had died, and they still have the ticket to this day. You can tell they're Elvis freaks. I love them both to death, and they introduced me to Elvis Presley, and he was one of a kind. He was something out of his time, but also timeless at the same time. Just like many artists were from up until like the 90s or 2000s, to be honest with you. But Elvis, I mean, Hound Dog, Jailhouse Rock, I Want You, I Need You, I Love You, Love Me Tender. Come on. Can't Help Falling in Love was not on this one because it didn't come out yet. It came out on the Blue Hawaii soundtrack. But yeah, back to their story for a second. They saw Elvis Presley live, and they said that my grandpa was like, he came out like God. He looked like God because the opening of the show was the I don't know how to say it, but it's like the theme song from 2001: A Space Odyssey. If you know what I'm talking about, good for you. We did a movie commentary on that. The opening of dun, 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 like that whole thing. They saw him do that live, and I forever will be jealous because Elvis was amazing. They said that I talked to my grandmother and my grandfather about this. They said, funny thing about Elvis is that whenever you see a concert artist, it leaves you with this like feeling of like, wow, I saw that person or that group live. They still have that impression of Elvis, but they said that it's the only thing they could say was it's probably the best thing they've ever seen an entertainer do or perform. They said it was the best experience they've ever had. Anything. And they saw Sinatra. They saw but Elvis was like the guy. They saw the Beach Boys. They saw Elvis and his performance live. And it still it's still in them today. That just goes to show you how much of an entertainer and a performer Elvis Presley was, not just during this time in the 50s, but also in the 70s when he was performing everywhere and anywhere, or in Vegas, you know what I mean? But yeah, going back to the album, I just want to share that story. Going back to the album, though, I love this album. I've listened to it on vinyl. I have a record player. It's loud. It's great. I love the turn, the way it spins. Vinyl's making a comeback. Whatever. It's great. But yeah, this is the first ever greatest hits album by any artist ever, and it really set the tone for like album artists like compiling songs to create what we now have today is playlists. What we have today is greatest hits, collector sets, compilations. It all started with this album right here. It all began with that guy right there. God, it's such a cool guy. I'm all shook up. RCA, don't kill me. Anyways, so Elvis Presley's Golden Records. Have you heard about this album? I mean, I read somewhere online that it's one of the most desirable vinyls to have of an original pressing of Elvis's vinyls. The other one was his debut, which was Elvis Presley's Elvis Presley. You can check that out online as well. If you can buy a vinyl, if you have a record player and you have collectors and stuff and you like to collect vinyl, this is definitely one I highly recommend for you. It's just fun. Like, he's Elvis Presley. What do you expect? So anyways, I digress. What do you guys think? Thank you so much for watching this episode of Rock Talk. I just want to shed some light on the king of rock and roll himself, Elvis Presley, and his first ever greatest hits album, Elvis's Golden Records. Love that guy. Cool guy. That guy. Great guy. Anyways, I digress. What do you guys have to say? Are you an Elvis Presley fan? Have you been to Graceland? Jump down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this album and any Elvis Presley stories you have in general. So please share this video, and thank you so much for watching. And but for all of your Rock Talk episodes, the J-Man is off to work. We'll see you guys later, and we'll see you later.